Namaste everyone and welcome to our newest video series on the Sankhya Karika. Now we were really thinking about which video series to do next right after the Yoga Sutra, and I felt Sankhya Karika made the most sense because it aligns so deeply with yoga philosophy and also because a lot of the foundational elements come from Sankhya that we hear about and talk about in the Yoga Sutras. So it just made a lot of sense to focus on the Sankhya Karika next, and I personally am really excited to go on this journey and to learn more and more about each of the sutras in the Sankhya Karika. This Karika has about 70 to 72 sutras which help us to understand the world of Sankhya and to understand evolution from a Sankhya perspective. Personally, I find this philosophy wonderful. It's one of the oldest philosophies. A lot of Ayurvedic principles are also based on Sankhya and they take from the foundation of Sankhya principles. And so I truly believe that Sankhya has a philosophical, metaphysical and spiritual component, but it also has a very practical element towards it and is used by both yoga and Ayurveda as its basic foundation. So our aim through this entire video series is to help us to understand what is Sankhya really telling us, how can we understand the world and the universe more clearly through understanding Sankhya better. And once we understand that, I think it makes life so much easier because we have a clear perspective on our metaphysics, we have a clear perspective on what it is to be alive and why we're here, and having that clear perspective helps us to lead a more meaningful and conscious life, and then of course to know our ultimate aim and why we want to come out of the cycle of birth and death eventually. So on that note, I invite you to journey with us as we get started on the Sankhya Karika. Once again, I am super excited, and we're going to start with, of course, the first sutra. Just like our Yoga Sutra series, we're going to break up each one because there's a lot of concepts and a lot of detail and depth in each of the sutras that is important to understand. So we will start right from the beginning with the first one and get into it. So let's begin without much further ado. Take a notebook, take a pen. If you're used to having a little bit of water or juice along with you, please keep that with you. I'm purposely not saying tea and coffee because, as you know, those are activating elements. The more natural water and juice that you can have, the better. So just bring your notebooks along and let's get started. So as always, I really like to have one main reference book for our videos that we use as the main text that will help us to inform and educate all of these videos through. And I think that's important because then, it's easy for everyone to know where the knowledge is coming from and what is the source. And as always, I have to mention that we are simply communicators, simply a medium, a channel. All of the knowledge exists in many ancient books written by phenomenal teachers, educationers and practitioners, and we are just sharing their teachings, adding a little bit of our own insight maybe into it, but mostly it's coming from a lot of credible sources that we believe in. So for this entire video series, we will be using the Sankhya Karika of Ishwar Krishna with the Bhashya of Shri Vachaspati Mishra, and that is going to be our basis for this entire series. So without much further ado, let's jump right into this text and see what the first sutra is all about and how we can break it up and keep going further. So let's start with the very first sutra. As always, we are simply going to pronounce the sutra. So we're not chanting it in its tonality the way it usually is when you're singing it or chanting it. But this is more for us to get clarity of pronunciation and also for us to learn the meanings. Alright, so there are separate videos that I will also link into recommendations where you can learn how to chant it, but this is more just for us to learn the meanings and what it stands for. So let's get into the first sutra. The sutra is Dukkha Trayabhighatat Jigyasa Tadapaghatake Hetau Drishte Sapartha Chetane Kanta Tyanatau Bhavata. Okay, so let's pronounce that once again. Dukkha Trayabhighatat Jigyasa तदपघातके हेतौ दृष्टे सा पार्था चेतनैकानतात्यन्ततो भावात्. Alright, so now that we know the sutra, let's start breaking it up word by word so we can understand it a little bit better. So the first word over here is dukkhatraya bhighatat. So first compound word here is the dukkhatraya. Now the dukkhatraya is referring to the three different types of pain. Dukkha over here means misery causing, pain giving, sadness. And dukkhatraya is referring to the threefold types of pain, because traya indicates something like a triad or three. So that is where we get dukkhatraya from. And then we have jigyasa, right? So jigyasa is a curiosity or a kind of wondering that comes about. So they're saying that there's dukkhatraya bhighatat, and then they're saying jigyasa. So it's almost like saying from those three different types of miseries, we automatically have a certain kind of curiosity that comes about. The next word over here is tadapaghatake hetau, right? So this is kind of, which is talking about how you're getting into trying to understand the cause of it. So now you want to understand that, okay, there are these three different types of miseries. I am aware of them. I can feel them. I'm living through them. Where do they come from? What are their causes? And where is the root cause of all of this suffering? Then we have the next word, which is drishte. And drishte, of course, comes from the root word drishya, or visible, which means something that is seen or something that is seeing. So over here it means there existing a visible cause. And then it's saying sa, right? So we have drishta sa partha, right? Okay, and sa is referring to it or the inquiry. And then we have apartha. Now, apartha is referring to something that is like superfluous or kind of like too much or not necessary to look into. Something that the best English translation, of course, is superfluous. Now, if over here it's coming to chet, right? So you're saying that drishte sa partha chet. And chet over here is referring to if it be so said, or if it be said in this way. And then we have na. So na usually means not so or not like that. So it's saying che and then na, and then it goes to a whole bigger compound word, which is ekanta, atyantataha, and abhavat. Right? So now if you look at ekanta, ekanta is coming from the word ek, which means one. Ekanta, or oneness, or oneness towards. So they're saying that there is the absence of a oneness or a certain kind of solution to these kind of three miseries. So there's an absence of certainty and permanency in the solutions to solve these three different types of pain that we're all afflicted by. So that's essentially what this sutra is trying to tell us, that so abhavat over here, the previous word, usually means an absence, abhav, it's not present. And then atyantataha means something that can be for sure, for certain, endless, that can be relied upon time after time. And there is no such solution that the Sankhya Karika has found, or that it does not exist at the moment. So all of this to say that the different types of pain that we encounter, which is the traya dukkha, are quite deeply seated, and they're so deeply seated that they need proper solutions that can be permanent, certain, and that will last with us for a long period of time. And the thing is that because Sankhya Karika, the authors of Sankhya Karika, believe that there is no accurate, certain solution to these three different types of pain, therefore they believe that this inquiry and this entire text on finding a solution for these three different types of pain is a very valid inquiry, because it needs to be made. And it needs to be made because, you know, we might have different means to help us to like suppress the pain or temporarily alleviate it, but nothing seems to work for the long run. And according to Sankhya Karika, that solution that is certain and permanent needs to be found, and once found, it can be adopted and used by human beings in order to reduce this traya dukkha and to become the best version of themselves. And of course, the best version of themselves, according to Yoga and Sankhya, is where Purusha and Prakriti are known to be separate, and the Purusha is able to separate itself from Prakriti. So now that we know that, let's get into understanding what are the Traya Dukkha, and moreover, why and how is Sankhya going to resolve this for us. So first of all, the Traya Dukkha is referring to the three different types of pain, which is quite an important theory in yoga philosophy in general. There are three different types of pain which we classify as Adhyatmik, Adi Bhautik and Adi Devik. Now, Adhyatmik is known as a spiritual or something that is an inner world pain that is within our own boundaries and within our own being. It's something that is to do more with our own thoughts, emotions and feelings, things that are more within our control in a certain way. Sometimes they may not be, but more so their ambit is internal, and that's why they're known as Adhyatmik categories of pain. Then we have the Adhibhautik, which refers to an external source, more so to do with the general public or things that we're encountering in our day-to-day lives that pertain to other people, important relationships in our lives, our work, our family, our friends, our community. So the different types of pain that may arise just as a result of being part of a bigger social circle and a bigger community, because there's so many things that are different about each of us and that may come up as pain points for us, and that would lead to long-term pain and suffering. So those are classified as Adi Bhautik. And finally we have Adi Devik, which are usually caused by certain supernatural forces that may be beyond our control. And so I found this super interesting because they're talking about what some of the supernatural evil influences could be. And so they reference yakshas, which are a class of demigods that have evil tendencies. They also talk about rakshasas, right, which in Hindi as well and most of the Indian languages, we know that means an evil spirited being or something that has a negative kind of vibration to it. So these are like, here they've given us goblin or evil spirits, but basically just beings that have negative vibrations or energies, like rakshasas, demons is how we would translate them as. And then also, of course, any superhuman causes like planetary influences or something in the galaxy or space that is causing there to be some kind of a negative impact in our day-to-day lives here on Earth. So those are all known to be different types of Adi Daivik sources of pain. Now that we know these three sources, it's important to realize that most of our pain can be categorized into these sources. We all go through pain, we all go through suffering, and there are times when life can get really difficult and we have to hold ourselves together. There's so much that we go through on a daily basis, and sometimes it's easier now to categorize that pain and know, okay, which ambit is it coming from, which realm does this pain belong to. And once we know that, we can actually take steps to resolve that pain. So that's why this is a useful framework or a useful mechanism for us to be able to categorize our pain and then work towards resolving it. So another thing that very often, some of my teachers have said is that even when we chant Om and Shanti 3 times, it's usually because we are, especially the Shanti, is because we're asking for or invoking peace in all the 3 realms where pain could arise, right? So we say Shanti 3 times, which means peace, peace and peace. So we're requesting there to be peace on all 3 realms of Adhyatmik, Adi Bhautik and Adi Devik pain. So we're really requesting and praying for there to be peace in all realms around us, and that's important. Now, what else is the sutra telling us, right? It's told us about these 3 different types of pain. We understood these categories. Now it goes one step further and it says that currently we have a lot of methods, but these methods are not permanent. They're not certain, and they may feel good in the moment, but they're not going to take away these pains completely, right? Because if you look at it, most of these types of pain are arising because we are influenced by the material world around us, because we take those things which are not permanent to be permanent, and then we feel pain, hurt and suffering because of that. And so this sutra is trying to tell us that if you're someone who wants to put an end to this pain forever and move towards a different way of being, then it's important to seek an accurate solution that we can rely on, that we can consider certain and permanent. And according to the Sankhya Karika at the time, there doesn't seem to be any such solution that is permanent and certain. And so therefore, this entire text is trying to, through its sutras, arrive at that solution that could be used to alleviate these three pains once and for all. And they also are saying in the sutra that, all the other methods are not permanent. And because of their impermanence, they cannot be relied on in the long run. When I first came across the sutra, I was like, okay, but there's so many things that we do on a daily basis to feel better, right? Like we do journaling, we'll do our yoga practice, we'll sometimes have a good talk with a friend, a cousin, a family member, maybe your therapist. And that may lead you to feeling better in the moment. But what they're saying is all of those methods are temporary because they alleviate the pain, but they don't take it away completely. The root cause still exists. And that root cause also is existing because of a lack of true knowledge of the nature of the self, right? And until that lack of true knowledge persists, pain will repeat itself in cycles, and we will find that it's so difficult to get out of it. So that's why, according to the sutra, it's in our benefit to undertake this study of understanding the nature of the self and really seeing that, okay, I'm aware of suffering. I know that I'm going through all these different 3 levels of suffering. And in that case, how can I resolve them? Because in most cases, we're aware of our problems, right? Like, I know what I'm struggling with. I know what my problems are. And I'm just out here to find solutions to those. So our main aim now is, having acknowledged the problem, let's go ahead and find the accurate solution. Another quick comment here. Sometimes when you start a new text with a negative term, like here it starts with the word dukkha, that can be considered to be not the best way to start a new piece of work. But it is explained to us here that it's starting like that because we're acknowledging a problem. And then the methods that are given are spiritual in nature and for our best growth and healing and learning, and therefore the methods that we're going to apply are going to be spiritual in nature. And so the usage of the word dukkha in the beginning does not make it a negative omen or something. It's just more because we're acknowledging the problem, right? And then after that, going towards finding these solutions. So that's what this sutra is telling us. There's a lot more to unpack in all of these sutras, of course. And if you're interested in learning more closely with us and following along with what these commentaries are saying, we do also offer one-on-one philosophy courses and classes, links to which are in the description. So if this is something that you would like to deep dive into even further and learn more, please do get in touch with us, and we would love to teach you. We have so many students from around the world that we interact with, and it's amazing to just see how they understand something so deeply when it's that one-on-one connection with them, and we're building and we're learning together on Zoom. And so I would highly encourage any of you that are interested, and if you're sincere students, right, and you enjoy this work, we would love to be in touch with you, practice and learn with you. So please do get in touch if this interests you. And aside from that, I will see you in our next video. Until then, take care, and we'll see you in the next one.